I am sure I'm not the only one who has been utterly obsessed with Bad Bunny's halftime performance at the Super Bowl. I have thought about it every day. I have watched it at least 10 times. And when I watched it the first time, I watched it live. I had just finished a shift at work. We had a nice TV in our bar. We decided to sit there, relax for a moment, watch the halftime show before we went home. It was moving, it was powerful. I think it was so hype. You couldn't help but groove to it. You couldn't help but have fun. And if we put politics aside, you have to see that Bad Bunny's halftime show was just incredible and a great monumental performance on multiple levels. And that's what I want to get into today with this video. Hi, my name is Hunter. I am a writer, author, storyteller, gamer, chef, and a lot more. I'm here today because I want to talk about the storytelling aspect of Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance. With the caveat, my focus is going to be slightly different than what you've no doubt seen online at this time, which is all the hidden meanings, just all the history lessons that were incorporated. I'm going to point those out, of course, but I don't feel it is my place to give you a deep dive into every aspect of cultural importance that showed up. I'm going to do my best to point out as much as I can, but my focus, I want to talk about the storytelling of it. And what I mean by that is I'm an author. I'm a writer. There are stories that you tell through art, whether it's film, whether it's music, whether it's books, whether it's a video game scenario. The aspect, the skill, and the effectiveness of storytelling is so important to the human experience. It's how we connect with one another. It is how we communicate ideas. It is how we learn. Just think of every time you've ever been in a school scenario. A lot of the information that's given to you is told in some way through stories. There are different ways that people relate information. So, coming from my perspective as a writer, the genres I primarily write in are fantasy and romance. And especially with fantasy, there's quite a lot of storytelling that goes into making the whole thing a good experience. And high quality fantasy will have a sense of history, a sense of unique cultures, a sense of importance in the things that people do. So just kind of laying out the groundwork for what I kind of want to get into today. So I'm going to be watching through the Super Bowl, making commentary, pointing out the cultural history that I can, and kind of going through my opinions. So I guess let's get into it. Now, one of the most important things we need to point out, even before going into this, is all that happened before going into this halftime show. Because we didn't just fall out of a coconut tree.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
And on a grander scale, obviously, we could talk about the history of the United States as it relates to Latin countries, the history of the United States as it relates to the Southern Hemisphere, as it relates to colonization, as it relates to the colonization of Puerto Rico, and just how terrible it is to have them as a U.S. Colony, is a U.S. territory. They have no representation in Congress. There's lots to talk about there, but I think one of the most important things to state as fact is that, one, Bad Bunny is one of the biggest music artists in the world at this moment in time. Over the past couple years, he's skyrocketed into fame, and I think it is a no-brainer to have someone at his caliber with his global reach to be a halftime performer. Obviously, there's all the backlash related to that, all the racism related to that, all the xenophobia, the ignorance, the stupidity that comes into all the criticisms of Bad Bunny not being a U.S. citizen, which is just ironic to begin with for multiple reasons, as if other halftime performers have not been U.S. citizens in the past. Also, as an aside, I broke my collarbone a few weeks ago and it's healing. Made a video about that, but if my right arm and right shoulder area looks to be acting up at all or I'm messing with it, that's just why. But obviously going into the Super Bowl, there's a lot on Bad Bunny's shoulders. And it's unfair that so much of a burden has been placed on him, but that's important context to know that this cannot have been a flop with the amount of politicism that this has created, the amount of right-wing versus left-wing obnoxious party politics that his inclusion on this stage entailed. Like it was ridiculous, is ridiculous, because people just haven't dropped it. To the point where literally, I mean, if you're watching this, you know, there was the freaking TP USA halftime, it's all American halftime show. Oh, little baby doesn't want to watch Bad Bunny. Little baby don't want to watch Bad Bunny. They want to make their own show. Yeah. So to the point where literally all these racists are coming together to create their own programming just because they don't want to engage with Latino. So going into the show, there's a lot riding on Bad Bunny.
The National Football League welcomes you to the Apple Music Super Bowl 60 halftime show.
Qué rico es ser latino. ¡Hoy se ve!
And obviously we're starting off, as many people have pointed out, in the sugarcane fields. This was actually filmed in the Dominican Republic, and that initial artist, Alexander Guerrero, all this is just one of many intentional choices that I want to talk about today. So this is obviously calling out to the culture that he belongs to the labor that has been exploited by many countries, but namely the United States, for a significant part of the modern era. Super Tazón. You have your dancers. He's starting with Titi Me Pregunta. Obviously, very popular song of his, and a fun song. And we're already getting into it where there's more important decisions are being made. Obviously, the stage has been set up, and the next step past playing an upbeat popular song of yours with a good beat is actually inviting businesses, actually bringing and pointing out and highlighting businesses and real careers that, you know, people playing dominoes. We have this very culturally rich, diverse cast already. Now this one's very interesting, which we just passed, is all the women laying cinder block. I'll put it up here if I can find it, but I saw someone point out that this could potentially be relating to all the women that had to become laborers throughout the history of places like Puerto Rico, whether it's in wartime era, whether it's during the aftermath of catastrophes like Hurricane Maria, where all members of the community are coming out to help rebuild. There's another instance, a more symbolic interpretation of this is that women are the building blocks of society. An interpretation I can get behind, but quite literally women laying the foundation for culture and society, and being able to sing songs like this, talking about I have so many girlfriends, Piragua. Lin-Manuel Miranda is crying right now, by the way, because he wasn't invited. Tacos. We got boxers. Just all these highlights of Puerto Rican culture. And one thing that I love is that this is an actual proposal. Like this, you know, a lot of people were eager to find out whether the wedding was actually real, which was, and then I wanted to know whether this was actually real, and it was. It is cool to be incorporating so much community into a halftime show, and it's not just done half-heartedly. It's not done willy-nilly, which I think is an incredible decision on Bad Bunny's part, is that this halftime show is very much about community. It's very much about incorporating all types of people, all types of people in the Latino community, and really understanding, which I think is such a big theme, like a storytelling theme, as part of this Super Bowl, is one among many. You know, it's not one above all, one above many. It's one among many. Basically highlighting the fact that you are part of a community, you have a culture you belong to, you have people around you that are just as important. There's joy to be found in that. There's joy to be found in being a part of a community and having other people around you and honoring the fact that they're important too. Obviously, we have our block party, which has a lot of stars. Pedro Pascal, love it. And another thing I want to point out is, let's see, can we go back a little bit? Is the use of color. The use of color is a very important and specific design choice. So I'm going to be pointing out the use of color along this show. Obviously, we start with green tones, tones of the earth, sugarcane fields, grass, which the moving people. We have this really bright, fun casita with a nice pink, yellow, but a lot of the other colorings in people's attire and costumes is muted, is earthy, is brown. Like you can see all these dancers are in tans, whites. The people hanging out, partying on the deck are in muted colors. They're not wearing anything flashy. White is a very important color too. I think on one hand, because I think there's cultural significance to white, especially with Puerto Rican culture, especially with laborers in the fields wearing white to not overheat during the day. White, I believe, also honors the ancestors in certain contexts. And so it's not just Bad Bunny that's in white, as we'll see later. White also has a context in the wedding part of this, but Benito being fully in white, in a white football jersey, and having other people in earthy tones so far is a conscious decision. The people that were asked to come out to party on the deck of the casita, their clothing choices are specific. As you can look, there's not... Let's see, yeah, they don't have bright, vivid colors. It's partially to blend in, to be a part of this scene without really standing out. And there's another thing that I'm going to point out too, probably when I get more in depth as it relates to other Super Bowl performances later, but I do want to point out the camera locations. This is a very intimate performance. The cameras are often at a ground level, looking up to Benito. At the ground level, looking at the dancers. The dancers are not masked. They don't have like helmets or anything. They're there. They're present. And you know, as we watch, keep that in mind, because the camera work for this performance is incredible, and camera work in terms of film is such an important part of storytelling. And again, by primarily placing the camera down below at the ground level, it creates a sense of unity, a sense of groundedness, a sense of intimacy, because it's not this drone flying sky high from 50, 100, 300 feet away, zooming in. Not saying that there aren't those shots, because there are, but just notice that the primary source of the camera shots are from a ground level, or from a level that's amongst the performers. And you have all these twerking Latinas on the screen. Well, what are Republicans mad about? Like, come on. They're not twerking alone, but, you know. Like, this is a very close-up shot. Another shot down below. Another ground level shot. Now, this I find interesting because it's a very specific choice to have a pre-recorded segment during your Super Bowl performance. And I think there's interesting interpretations as to what is happening here. I believe on the screen in the house is a football game playing. Or, yeah, it's supposed to be a game playing on the screen. So, from just kind of a humorous, literal take, this is showing just Bad Bunny crashing into the scene in your house during the game, whether you like it or not. And I think that's funny. That's him saying, I'm here whether you like it or not. Now, in actuality, the house is being used as like a staging location, so there's space down below for like performers to hide, staircase for Benito and the performers to all come and go as they need to. There's a lot going on here. From a set design standpoint, it's interesting to point out that things like the Virgin Marys, all the clocks, the vintage pieces, the plates, the kind of old style TV, all of these things are picked out for a reason. And the reason might be just to make it seem like a really lived in home, quote unquote. But again, there could additionally be more context than what I'm aware of throughout this. Now, potentially going into another one of my favorite parts of this. Again, a very intimate close-up shot of the action, of what's happening, creating the sense of a very grounded performance, of a very I keep saying intimate, but that's really what it is. Feeling like you're a part of something, feeling like you can dance with them. And again, the shots that are about to follow, crazy, love them. But you can also tell everybody in this segment is wearing brown. Fucking attitude of these bitches, I love it. And then we have our little gay moment, which, in the side of that was purposefully choreographed. Those performers are straight, which, not that it didn't really matter in my opinion, but while they are straight, the moment was choreographed. It was meant to happen. And it's just it literally happened for maybe 1 second. And it's insane how much the right-wingers are saying that is just like gay propaganda. And so there's a lot to be said about this topic, which I think I'll say at the end when I can. Bad Bunny, for the longest time, has been an ally to the queer community. He's performed in drag. What is it? Or Yo Poreo Sola. He dresses in drag for that music video. He is very much an ally, and I think he respects the queer community. While he himself says, I'm pretty much straight right now, but who knows, which is a valid stance to take, it's clear that he is using his platform, his masculinity, to help the community move past the homophobia that it might feel at different times. The internalized homophobia amongst Latino people, and I think that's an useful part of having someone so visible like Bad Bunny just embracing queer people. 1 second grinding between two men on a global platform such as the halftime show, it's not nothing. Clearly it's not because of the backlash that it prompted, but I think it's useful because, again, which I'm going to point out a million bajillion times, these are all conscious decisions. The choreography is purposeful. Where the camera is viewing, this is all purposeful. This is all choreographed. This is all planned out. Now we have our little detour. And I love, again, this is a very close-up shot. This is very close-up camera work. And all these performers, all these musicians are being highlighted. And in the last segment, all the close-ups of the dancers, the women with the attitude, I love just how visible they are. And that's an important storytelling element I want to say for this segment as a whole. This is so much about giving visibility to his community, about giving visibility to these performers, these artists, giving them a chance to be on this global stage and say, hey, here is my art, here is my business, here is my lifeblood, the thing that makes me happy, the thing that makes me feel like I'm part of a community, etc., etc. Sorry, girl, for landing on your face, but he's also a conductor from Chicago, I found out. because Governor Pritzker pointed him
es
out.
porque nunca,
I love this segment too.
nunca deja de creer en mí.
Also, that's so hot. Sorry. That look to the camera was very hot.
Deberías de creer en ti. Vales más de lo que piensas. Créeme.
Also, hold on. This
Deja de creer en mí. Tú también deberías.
this segment, if you didn't know, the double take that he took is because apparently one of the grass performers brought a Mexican flag with him and was waving the Mexican flag as while he's in the grass, or they were in the grass, and I guess it caught Bad Bunny's attention.
Vales más de lo que piensas. Créeme.
This message also is incredibly important. I'm here because I never gave up on myself. You should always believe in yourself. You're worth more than you think. Trust me. This is part of a very holistic and positive messaging that's coming from this performance. Again, these kinds of ideas, if you're getting upset for some of these ideas, if you are upset because you can't understand it, get over it. Again, important choice, which I'll talk about later. But if people are upset that they can't understand this when we live in 2026 and there's translator apps everywhere and there's subtitles and you can Google it after the fact and enjoy it in the moment, that's sad. It's pathetic behavior to get upset that you can't understand someone speaking in a different language. But it's incredible. And then, one of the biggest gag-worthy moments of this, we've literally officiated wedding, and the beautiful reveal of Lady Gaga. Now, before we get into that, very important things to point out. Let me zoom myself out a little bit. So again, everything is intentional. Her dress is intentional. These costumes are intentional. So you go from having a very earth-toned ensemble to the wedding ceremony where everyone's in white and Lady Gaga is in this really nice light blue. The light blue that belongs to the American Puerto Rican flag is very important. I also want to point out, now, funny enough, I guess Lady Gaga, the dress that she got, the designer did not know what the dress was for. It was developed by Raul Lopez, a Williamsburg native from a Dominican family. He got the request from her stylists for a salsa dress, but he didn't know it was going to be used during the halftime performance, which in a sense, is fine. And also makes sense because the secrecy of it she doesn't want her surprise appearance to get out. Anyway, they went crazy when they were watching the Super Bowl and realized that was the dress he designed. And it's also this flower, the Flor de Maga, is the national flower for Puerto Rico. This flower that's on her chest. Now, a lot of people have a lot of shit to say about her appearance here. And, I can easily say it makes sense. One, Bad Bunny loves Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga loves Bad Bunny. Lady Gaga has performed the Super Bowl multiple times. She is singing Die With a Smile, which is this beautiful love ballad. This is at a wedding. This is an appropriate song to sing. And then there's a couple other points that people have pointed out that I'm going to echo that are important context as well. One, going into this segment, Bad Bunny sings the phrase, isn't this what you wanted to see, basically, and then it has the vows, and then Lady Gaga as a performer, which is, this white woman, this typical American woman singing in English, which I think is an interesting point. People have also pointed out that it flips the idea on the head, where typically at weddings, minorities are often hired to perform, to be the wedding singer, to be the band. And this flips it on its head by having this very Latino wedding and a white woman be the singer, the performer. And I think there's an even more interesting way to look at this, which goes into this sense of unity, which is part of the overall storytelling theme of this performance. One among many, one with all. However you want to phrase it. There is no need to necessarily divide people up in the way that a lot of think tanks and xenophobes need to do. Lady Gaga is very comfortable here. She is not out of place. She's having fun. She's having a good time. She and Bad Bunny have this relationship, a working respect for each other. I'm not going to speculate as to past that, how close they are, but at the very least, they have both publicly said that they're fans of one another. So to me, it's completely natural for her to be performing here. It's also great. She sounds great. She looks great. She looks so hot. And Die With a Smile makes sense. A lot of people like to say that she's offbeat, whatever. She's not. It's just her doing a salsa version of this. The time signature is different, which, if you know Lady Gaga, she does different interpretations of her songs all the time. She did a jazz version of Applause. She recently did a rock version of Abracadabra at the Grammys. So a salsa version of Die With a Smile just fits into this world, into the world of this performance. It's just so beautiful. And then you have all these performers, this wedding dance. The bragging rights, too, for this couple to get to say, hey, we got married at the Super Bowl. Lady Gaga was our wedding singer. I just would die. Again, Lady Gaga feels very natural here. She's having fun. This is so cute. This isn't awkward. It's not like she's a weird, awkward piece of this puzzle. She is embracing this. Mother. Again, very intimate camera work, very present, grounded camera work that helps tell the story of dancing. The children, the adults, the elderly with the youth, and everybody's making fun of the kid sleeping on the chairs. Just a natural thing that happens at all weddings. Like, people can understand that. This is beautiful. Dance without fear. Love without fear. It's so funny to me that people are finding issue with this performance, as if a wholesome wedding is not. It's a straight couple getting married. Marriage is woke now. Did you guys know marriage is woke now? I will say, one thing I love, the consensus is pretty clear, is that I think Bad Bunny won the culture debate with this performance. Bad Bunny won the culture wars with this. Woke is so back. Now again, color is important. We go from this very holistic wedding, where beforehand a lot of people were in browns and dark earth tones. And now we're amongst the people. We're amongst people in their natural clothing as he sings, his New York song. All these bright colors. Again, purposeful choice. The choreography here is great as well. If I had not recently broken my collarbone, I would already have learned this choreography, but I think I'll do that later. This camera work is magnificent. Multiple people have pointed out, and I'm going to echo in case you didn't know, this is another important moment of Bad Bunny bringing culture onto a national stage. The woman here is Maria Antonia Kay, otherwise known as Tonita, She owns a Puerto Rican social club in Brooklyn. Yeah, so Toñita's Caribbean Social Club, giving him a shot of probably tequila or something, is just a wonderful nod to this woman who is such a part of that community in New York for these people. Obviously a beautiful moment symbolizing Bad Bunny talking to his younger self, thanking him. Such a beautiful moment. I'm curious what the backup plan was if he didn't win anything at the Grammys, but I mean, it was pretty locked in that he was going to win at least one. Obviously, a clip from him at the Grammys showing up. It's this wonderful moment of reflection that I think a lot of people can appreciate on looking back at your inner child in a way and saying you can't be where you are today without who you were as a kid, and just honoring your history and your past and your childhood being what has helped make you the person you are today. While the kid represents a young Bad Bunny, it also just is kind of showing how seeing things like Bad Bunny win Grammys, Bad Bunny perform at the Super Bowl, can be an inspiration to the next generation, to kids, to the youth. It's beautiful. Another beautiful transition, and we have Ricky Martin. Sorry, gotta stop you there. Not the prettiest face, buddy. Much like there is an important aspect to bringing Lady Gaga to perform, there's an important aspect to bringing Ricky Martin. Ricky Martin is such a groundbreaker, and his story is so interesting, and it's so important to the full context of this performance. Ricky Martin had to really dull down his culture and heritage in order to make it and to become successful. He had to tone down and hide the fact that he was gay. He had to sing in English in order to become successful. And so to be honored here at the Super Bowl, to be allowed and given the opportunity to exist honestly, to sing in your native language, is just beautiful. And obviously this scene setup, this mock setup for the cover of Bad Bunny's latest album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, just basically just about Hawaii being colonized and kicking out all the natives and just people being separated from their culture. The Wind was a paid actor here, by the way. God, this is so... He's beautiful. But basically, don't give up your culture. Don't set down the flag. Don't forget your songs and dances. And then immediately going into El Apagón, the blackout, referencing Puerto Ricans failing electrical grid because of U.S. interference and failures. This moment, I think, is probably one of the most politically direct moments in this halftime performance. Just this transition from Lo que pasó al Hawaii to El Apagón, showing the blackout, the electrical grid failing, the workers that are trying to put Puerto Rico back on the electrical grid, especially after Hurricane Maria, where there was the longest blackout in United States history. Through this complete dereliction of duty, the United States government failed the people of Puerto Rico during this national catastrophe. And so highlighting this aspect of context for Puerto Rico as it relates to the United States is a strong message, especially as Bad Bunny holds the original Puerto Rican flag. Because if you didn't know or haven't learned yet, this flag with the light blue is what the Puerto Rican flag was before it became a U.S. territory, and they changed the coloring of the blue to match the United States blue. So again, very important choice to hold your original flag. Talking about how Puerto Rico's great. Puerto Rico's that bitch. And this is actually, I think, the widest shot of this entire performance. We're we're finishing up the performance, and this is as far away as we get. And it's to see this community, all these people. You know, it's not highlighting just one person. Everybody's dancing. Even though Bad Bunny's the focus, everybody else is still dancing. Everybody still exists. So he has that moment. We have a break, and then we immediately go into Café Con Ron for this final aspect of this performance. It's like, even in the heart of disaster, there's time for dance, there's time to recover, and, you know, we have another directly political moment. And then, you know, as we're talking about, it's God Bless America, naming all these countries that are part of the Americas with the brilliant messaging, the only thing more powerful than hate is love, in the background. Everybody with their flags, everybody with their music. The white costuming, the white clothing is, again, purposeful to be in this front motion. It's, you know, has a spiritual basis. And for this to be how you end your halftime performance, saying, we are stronger together, you know, the only thing more powerful than hate is love. The Americas are not just the United States. It is all of us. We are all in this together. We're all in this together. It is, again, beautiful. You know, and then we have this fun, upbeat ending where everybody's dancing together as he's going off stage. This is triumphant. This is a triumphant moment. You know, what I was doing, part of thinking about this, is going back and comparing this halftime show to a lot of other ones. You know, I still love Lady Gaga's. I love Beyonce's from 2013. I think this one, though, is probably obviously the best we've had in a long time, but I think it's definitely one of the best halftime shows ever, because there's so much more to it than just, oh, I'm singing some songs and there's cool sets and dancing. Love Lady Gaga. But, you know, just kind of looking at this and saying, okay, what is the camera work telling us? What is the storytelling of the piece? And personally, you know, Lady Gaga, love her, but there's no real storytelling in her halftime show. Singing her popular songs, which I love, it's a vibe, it's great, we're having a good time. Singing the hits, she's giving a show. You know, she's giving a show. There's lots of other halftime shows where they're basically just concerts, which isn't necessarily bad, you know, as long as the vibe's there. But if most of what you're doing... Oh, Bad Bunny. We have Shakira's, which again, he appeared during it, which is interesting. Danny found that lock. It's like, again, cool performances, but it's just a concert. It doesn't mean effort's not put into it. And there's certainly some moments that, you know, have meaning. Love Rihanna, her halftime performance was lame. One thing to point out is that a lot of the filming of these performances are either just close-ups of the singer or wide shots of, like, the stage. You know, you have some moments like this where the camera gets up real close, but a lot is just from a distance, you know, or from the front, but zoomed in. One thing I do like about Rihanna's halftime show is what I pointed out a lot during Bad Bunny's, the camera work being intimate with the performers. Again, there's no real scene here, it's just a stage, but the camera does get into the performers. A lot of it is, especially in this one, just flying over wide shots, but like this moment is great. This is one of the best moments of this halftime show, is just this camera work going into the performance. Note costuming choices, This is more for aesthetic, right? Like, costumes are fun, they're cool. It's definitely highlighting Rihanna as the focal point of this entire performance. But their faces are pretty hidden. They're uniform. They're not really supposed to be different from one another. Kendrick Lamar's was interesting because he did try to go the more storytelling route, and there's definitely some cultural implications in what he does. But I do feel like too ghetto. The background dancers are just like set pieces in something like this too. They're in red, white, and blue, obviously, colors of the United States flag. But they're supposed to be uniform. You know, the people themselves, the dancers themselves, are not highlighted. And you know, we have our surprise guest for him being SZA and her lip syncing. Obviously, every artist is going to say Drake. Every artist is going to have their own aesthetic and take and ideas and desires for their performance. But I think it's also interesting to reflect and compare, because when you have someone like this that doesn't have a set for their performance almost at all, compared to Bad Bunny's, who is very intentional in the design of this, the intimacy of this performance, the cultural significance of nearly every aspect: the grasses, the fields, the trees, the sugarcane maze, the La Casita on one side, La Marqueta on this side, the space for the performers, the electrical grid set piece, the platform for the wedding. So much of what is done with this performance is intentional. And I think that's what makes it such an interesting example of what you can do with storytelling. By displaying parts of your culture in both direct ways and subtle ways, it's kind of just giving visibility to different things and showing these types of people, this type of music, this type of culture, throwbacks to important icons like Ricky Martin. Now, I'm going to get into some of the more, I'll say, my focused kind of takeaways from this, which I have been thinking about. Again, I'm coming from the standpoint as an author, as a fantasy writer, as someone that just generally enjoys storytelling and its meanings, and is in tune with politics and is aware of empire and its influence in different things. And so it's important to point out things aren't done in a vacuum. Everything you do is political. Everything that is done is political. Every choice made during Bad Bunny's halftime show was political. It was all done for a reason, and every reason cannot be separated from politics, because politics is essentially how the world works. And so anytime there are different power dynamics in play, that's politics, baby. And so to have things like Ricky Martin, this cultural icon, this person that was not given their flowers, that was forced to hide who they were or change who they were in order to become accepted and successful, to bring someone like him onto a stage, to give him his flowers, to give him his chance to shine authentically, much to the amazement of, all the people back at home, I imagine, and I've seen all the clips of all of the moms and dads and aunties freaking out over him. Mm-hmm. I think it's useful because in a storytelling in like a writing context, I would say, the idea of bringing back or having an icon that means something to people, that has been pushed aside or disregarded by whatever power dynamics are in play, that existing in your world helps broaden your world and helps make the storytelling, the story that you're trying to tell, much more authentic and much more believable if you're incorporating things like power dynamics or revolutions. Performance is political. There are so many examples of people fighting back against tyranny, against oppressive governments, against kings, with performance, with comedy, with fashion and design. There's a reason that books are banned. There's a reason that people are upset about certain types of music and ban certain types of music in some places. You know, go watch Footloose. Go watch Footloose. Go watch The Hunger Games. There's so many examples ranging from seriousness. You know, Footloose, you don't have an oppressive, tyrannical government that's killing people, but you have a community that's banning certain forms of expression. There's a reason that art gets banned, and it's because it has such an influence on people. It showcases and inspires. And if you have revolutionary art or revolutionary music or books, that is dangerous to fascists and tyranny, because it's going to inform people, and an educated populace is much harder to control. People have been thrown in jail for displaying traditional iconography. You know, there's examples from all over the world. Governments feel threatened by iconography associated with certain political parties, with previous regimes, with, you know, ideas of independence, which is what this flag represents in certain contexts. And in this context, I would say, while, you know, I'm not so familiar with every part of Bad Bunny that I could give you an answer onto his stance of Puerto Rican independence, I think it's pretty powerful to hold up a flag associated with Puerto Rican independence at the Super Bowl halftime show during your song El Apagón. People are thrown in jail. People are killed because of, in real life, because of iconography that can be associated with independence and revolution. There's been examples in various books I've read, which you can probably associate with as well. You know, even something like The Hunger Games with the symbol of the Mockingjay. I think The Hunger Games is a very culturally relevant piece of work, one that a lot of people have seen and can relate to, or at least connect the dots with. And so something like the Mockingjay being a symbol, you know, the Hanging Tree as a song being a symbol, being influential, being banned or whatever. And then just the closing message, obviously one of unity, one amongst many. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. Powerful statement, encapsulates what he wants to accomplish with this performance, you know, and goes to show there's so many stories out there involving magic where love is the most powerful magic of all, yada, yada, yada. You know, in a literal context, you can take it that way. But there's just such a much more broad context to this statement that means so much more. We are in such a difficult time in society these days, where racism is running rampant, general hate, you know, of all kinds, racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, everything. Just hate is such an easy and base emotion to access that to choose love, to choose goodness, to choose respect and care is such a much more, one, morally correct way to live life, but it's more difficult. And that's what makes it powerful. The idea that choosing to love your neighbor, to care for your neighbor, to love people that are different than you, to care for people that are different than you, is a choice you have to make purposefully. And by being able to see someone's culture, by being able to see all these people are not, you know, scary or whatever, I think is going to have some real impact in people's lives. You know, it's not going to change things overnight. Nothing ever does. But there are important moments in culture, and I think this halftime show is one of them, because it is a very joyous experience, and it's not hateful. this isn't like a hateful halftime show. It's very much rooted in a love of culture, love of community, love of your country, love of your fellow man, love of all kinds of people. There's a marriage, there's visible gay people, there's women of all different shades, women and men of all different shades, different cultures represented. Obviously, this moment where it's all these flags of almost all of the American countries coming together. It's just such a beautiful statement. And I think in especially this dark time in American politics, it's a light in the dark. And I think that's what his intention was with this, and is the overarching theme and message with this show is just one of positivity, one of joy, and the core theme, one among many. Together, we are America. It's such a rebuke of the hateful politics of a lot of people in the right wing. So it's important to note, I think, from like a writer standpoint, that all your decisions matter. The decisions on fashion, what people wear. Does fashion have context? Are there certain types of clothing that mean something? Are there certain types of clothing that are banned for being, against the grain or taboo? Are certain colors significant of certain events? We have white being kind of associated with working in the fields, about keeping cool, honoring ancestors, being pure in a way. If we're talking about the common association with white, do certain colors mean something? Are certain animals associated with certain things? Concho, the frog guy that appears in a lot of Bad Bunny stuff, is based on the crested toad that is in Puerto Rico. It's another way to highlight the culture, to highlight different things about the island. And again, when we're talking about fantasy, if we're talking about tyranny or governments that are oppressive, or one kingdom encroaching on another, it's important to think about what types of things are they going to be upset about? What types of things are they going to look at as revolutionary material? Is, in this moment right here, we see the Puerto Rican flag, that the current one, the dark blue, that is similar to the dark blue on the United States flag. The Puerto Rican flag of independence with the light blue, the original light blue, the same light blue that Lady Gaga wore on as her dress, that has a different meaning. That has more context that certain people obviously aren't going to know just right away, but it's not some secret. So in your fantasy, in your world building, are there things that are secret codes? Is there clothing? Are there pieces of iconography that are going to be secret codes or have secret meanings or be used as some alternative message? And also, performance has meaning. Performance is where people can get away with saying a lot without immediately being attacked for it, necessarily. And a lot is also forgiven because of performance, but a lot is also scrutinized with performance. And there's kind of a scale, a balance that you can look to hit when you write certain things, or you try to increase or expand your world building, I should say. What is the political response to certain types of performance? Theater is a crazy example of this. Shakespeare, a lot of his shit is banned in a lot of places. We think about nowadays too, books are being banned. Plays are being banned. Theaters are being defunded because, people in charge in politics don't like the content that they're putting out. Theater has often been used as a way to criticize government. And it's often one of the first pieces of art that gets hit by oppressive governments is They, censor, they cancel, they ban pieces of theater, plays, music, art in general, because art has the power to speak to people. So, if you have an oppressive government in your book, what are performance pieces in response to that? Are there singers that sing revolutionary songs? So there's so many things you can consider about that. And like Bad Bunny did by incorporating Lady Gaga, by incorporating these other performers on the stage, Pedro Pascal, Carol G, Cardi B, Jessica Alba, other people from Puerto Rico, Ricky Martin. Are there people that relate to your story in a way that aren't necessarily part of it? If you're, telling a fantasy about a tyrannical kingdom, are there elders that were pushed out by that kingdom that could have influence on getting people inspired? I think that's, a thing we've seen before in storytelling where, the retired knight or retired somebody comes back to participate in the war or the efforts of revolution. Oftentimes, we'll see, the older soldier that decides to fight again for, a better world after maybe putting down the sword because nothing changes, or different things like that. These are all things that I've been thinking of while thinking about this halftime performance, because it just echoes. There's so much that can echo in things like this. Obviously, there's all the direct things that Bad Bunny is referencing in our real world context, especially with Puerto Rico. But if you want to look at the world around you and events that happen around you as an author, any kind, but especially as like a fantasy and sci-fi author, I would say, you can look to events like this that happen in the real world, why these events happen the way they do, the choices that are made during these events, because again, especially with things like this, every decision is intentional. The color of clothing, the fashion choices, the set design, the way the camera is choreographed to move, the messaging, the wording, the choice to sing entirely in Spanish, this person's native language, and not cater to this expectation that people coming to the Super Bowl need to sing in English. And then you can look at the backlash to this. What is happening, obviously before, but also after? We have government officials trying to investigate this performance for just bullshit reasons. What is the response from an oppressive government or a fascist government to anything that can be even slightly construed as revolutionary media? And I think that's, I guess, a big point I want to make in this video is, obviously, this performance is a masterclass of storytelling, but I love to look at things that happen in the real world and put a fantasy spin on it in my head, because as a writer, as a storyteller, I like to do that. I like to imagine different scenarios, and maybe it would be helpful for you too, to help expand your world, to deepen the just believability and history of whatever world you're creating in your fantasy or sci-fi space. Even if you're doing something contemporary, something modern, these pieces of information can still influence your writing. You can still have culturally relevant information in your book or film, etc., that have impact. Tiny, minute messaging that can have real impact, or big, bold messaging that can encapsulate kind of everything you're trying to say. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. And everything that happens in this performance helps support that message. Everything about this is celebratory, joyful, or in some way, even if it's calling out negative things, like Ricky Martin singing about colonization and gentrification, and how Hawaii is a mirror to Puerto Rico, to Alapagon. These are serious topics, but they're presented in a way that I believe still enhance the overall message, is that we can overcome, we can be strong together. We can be strong when we understand that we are part of a whole. We are not on our own. When we understand and respect that we are one among many, we can see our community as something to admire. We can see our neighbors as someone to look out for. And we can see the people around us that don't look like us as people still deserving of dignity and respect and love and care. All right. Thank you so much for chilling with me for this video. I hope you learned some things, or you could appreciate the aspects of this halftime performance in maybe a different way, or you can kind of get the gears turning if you're a writer yourself, an author yourself, to how performances like this, how art like this can be dissected and interpreted and peppered through your own craft, your own storytelling. There's so many unique ways to look at storytelling as it relates to culture, as it relates to power, as it relates to empire, and to put the pieces together and create something really interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna go watch this again straight through because I'm obsessed, and the YouTube video is almost, if probably by now it is, at 100 million views. I would not be surprised if this becomes one of the most watched halftime shows ever. I'm proud of him. I'm happy for everything that's going on. I love that he's an ally for the queer community and isn't afraid to continue being so and doesn't want to back down. I also like that he values storytelling. He values choices and decisions in art, because that's important to me. That's a cool thing. Otherwise, I think I've talked for quite a while, so hopefully I can edit this into something presentable and something worth watching. But my arm still kind of hurts. Anyway, thank you for being here. I wish you the best. Happy Lunar New Year, because we're at that point. Luck and blessings to everyone, no matter where you are. It's the year of the fire horse. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year. And with that, until next time.